Hello, and welcome to Beyond Books, where we talk about books from Book of the Month Club and beyond. I'm your host. I'm Renee. It's Tag Tuesday again. Time to do another tag. This time I was tagged by Uncommon Reader, and this is called the This or That tag. And this tag was initially created by Ross at Scally Dandling About the Book and Elizabeth at Bokeen Books. So let's see what we can do with this tag. It says use the tag to talk about what you like or dislike in nonfiction about people. Pick the prompts that appeal to you or allow you to enjoy being opinionated. Well, I'll enjoy being opinionated. That'll be okay. Do mention books, good and bad, as you go along. Okay, so let's see what we can do. All right, so the first question is, do I like big, fat, and detailed biographies or short and succinct biographies? Well, I'm probably not the first person to jump out and read a biography, first of all. So when you look at it in that sense, I probably would go with the more short and succinct. Also, I'm lazy, so so much for that. But I am reading one right now. This is the biography of cancer, and this is, pretty hefty, a pretty hefty work here. I don't know how many pages it is. Don't be a weenie, Renee. It's only like 400 and something. Seems bigger. But anyway, yeah, so I've been working on this, The Emperor of All Maladies. This is a good book. Just interesting to break cancer down to its, parts over the years and the parts that they've learned over the years and what has happened. And so, yeah, this is interesting. It's a very complete biography. So that one's pretty long, but yeah, I would say probably more the succinct I would go for. Next is Celebrity Memoirs or Average Joe Memoirs. Now, that's kind of an interesting question. I've read both for sure, but I probably would say if I were going to pick just based on the fact, oh, this is so and so's memoir, I would tend to go towards the celebrity end because here's my reasoning. For the average Joe ones, usually, like on the cover, it would say something like, my experience as the first women's bobsledder in the Olympics or something like that. So you would kind of be reading more about this event that, brought some degree of fame to the person, even though they were probably before that somewhat of an average Joe. So I'm looking at it as if you were to pick something simply because it's a memoir, you would tend to go more towards names that you know. Like I have this here. I just picked this up for like $1 or whatever at some store. William Shatner, Live Long, and What I Learned Along the Way. Yeah, he's just always been a character that's interesting to me. It's a short book. I'll read this at some point and probably enjoy the heck out of it. So, yeah, things like that, no problem. Complete correspondence or selected letters. Again, got to go with the lazy and say selected letters. And it better be a good selection. No, I just, yeah, probably for the most part. I can't imagine somebody I'm so interested in that I'd want to read all of their correspondence. I'd probably go with selected letters. Memoirs written when the events are fresh or memoirs written with hindsight. Now, this is an interesting question. I think that in recent years, there has been a real rush for people to write their memoirs. Oh, this happened when I was working in the White House, for instance, or, this and that about something that has freshly occurred. And I know they want to sell books and they need to sell books. And I'm not saying that what they have to say isn't interesting, because I've read some of those books and they certainly have been very interesting. But um, yeah, a lot of events are not all said and done at this point. And some of the things that are going to be written, I think, with a little more hindsight on them, will in some ways be a lot more meaningful. So that would be something that I might use as an example. Gossipy biographies or scholarly biographies. Gossipy for sure. I mean, that's where all the fun is. I mean, you want to know, what was that like? What happened? Who was there? What was going on? Scholarly, no, not so much. I don't need to have their resume, but if I can find out some interesting tidbits of gossip, well, that's, way more interesting. So I'll say gossipy. Diaries of ordinary life or diaries of extraordinary events. Um, yeah, I'm going to say diaries of extraordinary events. Um, yeah, again, that's where the interest would be. That would be the reason you purchase the book or pick up the book at the library or whatever in the first place. Or, someone refers it to you because they're like, oh, this happened and that happened. I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, well, this ordinary person who wrote in a diary every day, go ahead and read it. It's going to be really interesting. That just doesn't happen. I mean, unless they live through a really unusual event and their thoughts about it or something had something unique to them. Otherwise, yeah, it just kind of is that way to me. Arty memoirs or sporting memoirs. Um, when it comes to something like that, I think I kind of like the sporting a little bit better. Kind of like to read about that competition and training that people go through. I've read memoirs of people that have done like ultra triathlons and things like that. Something that you can relate to as a sport, or like I say, maybe being the first female in a particular sport or something like that. I mean, that's just interesting to me, probably more so generally than something that's arty. Gritty autobiographical writing or inspirational autobiographical writing. Again, I'm going with the grit. I'm going with the gritty. That's what makes it interesting. Biographies of historical figures or biographies of contemporary figures. I'll go with contemporary. Yeah, I've definitely read way more of those. I have this I've never read, but I've had it for a while, just haven't picked it up. Matthew Perry's autobiography, or memoir is what it actually is. Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. Uh, I've read like Rachel Maddow's biography. This came out a few years ago. Excellent. Michael J. Fox's. We talked about this on, I think, one other tag I did. No Time Like the Future. I read this. Very good. Of course, Me by Elton John. This was a really good one that I enjoyed. On my Kindle, I know Moby. He has a two-part autobiography. Also very good. And this, of course, this man is silly, but I enjoyed his antics. Green Lights. This is by Matthew McConaughey. So that's some that I have around. But yeah, I've read many over the years. Um, Memoirs of happy days or memoirs of tragic days? Well, it depends. Sometimes, too, when you look back on your most tragic day, it is in a way one of the more happy ones in a sense because, you've either overcome something or, um, it made you a better person in some way or another. So, yeah, you have to have a little bit of both, I think. If everything were happy, it might be fun to read, but probably a week later you wouldn't remember a thing about it. Your mind would remember the problems and the tragedies and how people overcame those. I don't know, that's kind of like the what my mind wants, sort of, not just something that's just static and happy all the time. So here is a bonus prompt from Elizabeth. The Complete Diary of Samuel Pepys, and I had to look up how to pronounce that, which is over 4,000 pages or 116 hours and 16 minutes of audiobook. Oh my. Or selections from the diary of Samuel Pepys, which can be as short as 120 pages or 3 hours and 55 minutes of audiobook. Well, here's the thing. I don't know who Samuel Pepys was, but I did look him up. It says he was an English diarist and administrator, uh, and he lived from 1633 to 1703. Uh, he was a naval administrator, and he served as the administrator of the Royal Navy and Member of Parliament. But he is most remembered today for the diary he kept for almost a decade. And though he had no maritime experience, Pepys rose to be the chief secretary to the Admiralty under both King Charles II and King James II through patronage, diligence, and his talent for administration. Well, I mean, that all sounds excellent, but I probably wouldn't read about it. I'm glad for Samuel Pepys and his descendants now since the 1600s. But yeah, I probably would tend to not read that. And if I did, it would most certainly be the shorter version. So, all right, that was an interesting prompt. Thank you, Uncommon Reader, for tagging me. And it's an open tag. I'm going to have the prompts in my description, and I'll leave the little blurb that I found out about Samuel Pepys so that you'll know about him too, and then you'll be able to pick it up and just go ahead and do that one if you'd like. It's actually kind of interesting, gets you thinking about how you select memoirs and biographies and autobiographies and things like that. So, yeah, I hadn't really ever thought that much about it before. So, anyway, if you like my content, please like, subscribe, leave me a comment, ring the notification bell. I always appreciate everyone who does that very much. Have a great Tag Tuesday, and thanks so much for watching.